1 year ago, I introduced you to a product where I said, if you applied it a few times a year, it will almost eliminate your rust problem on your Yoder. Today, we're gonna have a close look and see just how well that product did. What's up, barbecue fans? Welcome back to the patio. My name's Jake. You're watching Run and Cook. Today on the channel, we're talking about the Yoder. We're doing a 1-year update to the rust prevention video that I did last year. And I'm gonna bring you in close and we're gonna look and discuss the results of that video and that product. We're also gonna talk to you a little bit about the issue, give you some background on it, gonna give you some tips. I'm gonna give you some tips on how to clean this guy. And because it's that time, I'm also gonna do an application of ACF50 so you can see how to put it on. We've got lots to cover. Let's get into it. So let's talk about the issue a little bit. If you do a little bit of research on Yoder, rust is gonna come up in your searches fairly quickly. Now, where does that come from? Well, when Yoder was trying to decide what they're gonna do for the outside coating on their pellet grills, they had a couple different options. They did a whole bunch of research, and one of those options, you just powder coat it. The issue with powder coating is that if you ever scratch that, it's just gonna rust out in that spot and you're not gonna be able to repair it. And when you've got something that's made of a 10 gauge steel, it's gonna last a long time if you take care of it. The last thing you want is rust just spreading underneath that powder coating, and then eventually it's just gonna flake off. So they want to come up with another solution. The challenge is that first and foremost, we have a pellet grill that goes from 150, 200, where it's gonna be commonly used at, all the way up to 600 on the dial. Now, that's on the dial. When you put this guy in the sear mode, you open up your diffuser door, throw in your grill grates, and if you're at 600, you're gonna hit temps of 750, 800, no problem. So now we have a product here that has a very wide range of temperature. So now we need a paint that is heat resistant and can handle the big temperature swings. In addition to that, they also wanted to make sure that when they coated it, it didn't fade. Right? Last thing you want to do is buy a black grill and then in a couple or 3 years sitting out in the sun, it's all faded and looks like crap. The last piece of the puzzle was they wanted to have a product that they could put into a can, and if it came down to it and you developed some rust, you could take care of it yourself, right? If you don't take care of this and this whole thing gets covered in rust, you can literally take a grinder, sandpaper, whatever tools you're gonna use, wire brush, and you can take all that rust off and buy the Yoder paint and you can make it look like brand new again. Now, if you're anything like me, you don't wanna go through that work. So there are a few things you can do so you don't ever have to worry about that. First and foremost, make sure you get yourself a cover. If you don't have one of these, I recommend you look into it. They're not that expensive. It's a one-time purchase. These, in most cases, sit outside. This is a great way to help protect them. So 1 year ago, I applied ACF50 to this guy. We cleaned it up and put a coating on the top, the hopper, underneath, all of this, the legs, the shelf below, the stack. Anywhere that there was black paint, took all the shelves off and everything, put a good coating of ACF50 on it. We let it dry, we buffed it off, and I left it alone. And then, about every 4 months or so, I applied another coating to anywhere, like this beveled edge here, the beveled edge in the back, anywhere that could potentially hold a little bit of moisture on it, I put another coating on. What I did not do is I did not take off the grease shield, and I did not do the legs or the cart section, the shelf below at all. They've only ever been done once. So I've done 3 coatings of this to date. Today will be the 4th coating of it. And when we look at it, I've cleaned it off just so you can see everything. We've got a little bit of rust here around the stack. There is one tiny bit of, you can see the paint bubbling underneath, and I can see just a couple pinholes of rust here. Not a ton. There is nothing on the back. There's nothing on the cart whatsoever. The whole shelf, everything, no rust whatsoever. Nothing on the hopper. Where I do have some is in here where the The temp probes go through, scratch the paint over time. You can see a tiny bit in and around one weld, none on the inside or around the edges. While I'm taking this off, the one thing I'll tell you is if you don't have a grease shield, grab one of those as well. I'll put a link down below. But one of the problems is as you're taking off food, juices, rubs, barbecue sauces, they've got some acid or some sugar in there. They run down the front and will eat at the paint. So this does a great job of it. In the beginning, I didn't think you really needed one, but now that I have one and I see just how often I actually drop stuff that I didn't think I was dropping, this does a great job of it. And if you get yourself some Barkeeper's Friend, which I've talked about lots of my videos, I put a link down to that below. It's a white powder, but it'll just not scratch this and it'll take it up like new. So we take this guy off. You can see I've got one here and a little bit of a spot here. This I'm confused about. I'm not sure why that's there because the grease shield has been on. The only time it was not on was when I did the video with the thermal jacket, and you can't have the grease shield on with the thermal jacket. I did a few cooks like that, so it's possible that I just trapped some moisture into there and didn't catch it. It's not a bunch, but it is a little bit of a mark there. There is none on the sides. There was some... Well, there's a little bit on this edge around the weld, but that's it. In a year of cooking, look, I cook all year round. There's no, what do they call that? Sunny weather. I don't know. There's a fair weather saying, I can't remember what it is, but this guy cooks all year round. I don't care if there is a foot of snow on the ground. It doesn't bother me in the slightest. I don't like to cook inside. I like to be on my grills. And this guy through the week, I've told you guys a million times, I use this a ton during the week because I do a lot of chicken during the week, and I love how you can just set it and forget it for chicken. Whatnot. So this guy's got a lot of use. I have at this point in time probably in the neighborhood of 220 cooks in the last year on this guy. So I'm putting it through its paces. And I'm impressed. There's no other way to say it. When I first did that video with the ACF 50, I had a couple comments, and one of the comments I had was from someone that said it wouldn't work because it apparently burns off at 350. Well, this is 10 gauge steel. So when I'm rocking at 475, 500 degrees, and when I take my laser temperature gun, we're like 300 degrees, 320. It's not going past, it's not getting up to 350 and it's not going past 350. So the ACF 50 is working and doing its job. There's no problem with it. It is a rust inhibitor. So on these little spots here where I've got a little bit of rust, we're gonna just coat it the way it is. I'm not gonna bother sanding this down. I'm gonna coat it because that's gonna stop the rust from spreading, and I'm just gonna remember to put a little bit extra on here. And my goal is to prevent having to do any sanding or painting for the next 3 or 4 years. And I'm going to give you guys some updates as we go along, but as you can see, from 1 year and 3 applications, we're in pretty good shape. The only other spot I forgot to point out is there's a little bit under here, under the handle. But other than that, that's pretty remarkable for a year, that many cooks, and using it all year round. So we know the product works. What's the product? It's called ACF 50, and it is a anti-corrosive formula, protects, penetrates, and lubricates. And there's 2 different versions of it. There's a spray, which I recommend going this route after trying both of them. This is a liquid. You can buy it in a pump spray and refill it, but the spray is a little bit easier. This is nice to get into like a little bit of a thicker coating in some areas, like under here, into your welds. But if you give it a good spray, this works, and this is just easier in the long run to put on. I'll put some links to this below so you can get it. Now the big thing is, before you use this product, you need to make sure your surface is clean. And the best way to clean your surface is to use some Citrus Safe. Again, I'll put a link down below. This is a nice, safe product. It won't hurt your paint. Now you guys have heard me, if you've been around the channel for a while. If you're not, subscribe so you see future videos. However, ZEP 505 is an amazing degreaser. Now I use this everywhere, not so much on the paint, but on the stainless steel. I use it a lot because it just strips out the grease. Same with the grease shield, but you know, you'll use this in more, I use it like on the other grills as well. It just does a great job of cutting through the grease. So essentially what you're going to do is you will take your microfiber cloth, you'll spray a good coating of the citrus safe on here, and we're going to take it off. Let me get a different cloth here. But it's really it's a wipe on, wipe off, and just let it dry. And that's it. It'll just bring back up the paint. Now I've already done this, so I don't really have to worry about that step. And then we look at our ACF 50. It's got a ball in it, give it a good shake. And just for reference, there's probably half a can in here after 3 coatings, so it does last a little while. Now I did use about almost a quarter of this when I was kind of playing between the two. Comes out purple, sprays a foam on there, wipe it around. And what you want to do is you want to do every bare surface that you can find anywhere where there's black paint, right? So put a good coating everywhere. And on the welds, I'm gonna put a little bit extra in there and just let it soak into anywhere where the paint didn't quite get into that weld. Put a nice coat in there. And these spots where I've got a little bit of breakthrough of rust, I'm going to put an extra thick coating on there. So real quick, that took about 5-6 minutes. We've got the entire thing coated. I want to go over a couple things before I forget. Number one, most important, do not put this on the inside. This is external use only. This is not food safe. If you, just naturally cooking briskets and fatty foods, pork butts and all that kind of stuff, you're going to naturally season the inside. If you need to do some additional seasoning for whatever reason, use a food safe oil like Pam or spray canola oil. You guys have seen me use that before, especially on the diffuser. It's nice to do that every once in a while. But again, do not put ACF 50 on the inside. I only put it along the outside in every single spot. So don't forget that. Number two, as we got down low, you probably would have noticed something. My wheels are on backwards. All right, this is on purpose. This is not Yoder's recommendation. In fact, it actually reduces the slant. You want the fat or the grease to kind of drain this way. That's why it's offset a little bit. It does make that end a little lower, but this area for me is slightly slanted, so it does offset that. But for me personally, I move this guy around a lot, and I need to be able to go in and turn, and having the turning wheels on this end makes it far easier to move this around my patio so I can shoot videos for you. But they are on backwards, and I just wanted to clarify that piece of it. So now what we're going to do is we're going to let this sit for about 10 minutes until you can see in here it's starting to dry. I'm going to give it a little bit more time to dry, then I'm going to buff it off, and then I'll bring it back for some final thoughts. And just like that, we're done the entire process. Now what I did do is I moved my umbrella to let the sun have some contact with it just to help dry up the ACF 50, and it was actually closer to 15 minutes. I put a fairly thick coat on there, and then we gave it a buff off. It has a little bit of a shine to it, but it's not too much different than the original paint. However, now we know after being a year that it's going to help us with rust. A couple final things. First and foremost, don't forget a cover if you don't have one. Number two, don't forget about your grease shield. It will save your butt, because once you have one, you'll see just how much grease and barbecue sauce and stuff, even when you're super careful, falls down the front. And if you don't clean that off, those acids and sugars will eat through the paint and it will cause it to rust prematurely. And number three, use some ACF 50 at least 2 times a year, probably 3. I'm in the Northeast, so we get full 4 seasons, and because I use this so many times throughout the year, it definitely gets exposed to the elements. So use that as a guideline depending on where you are. Works really, really well. Hopefully you got some value out of this. If you're not subscribed yet, why not? Do so below. Give the video a thumbs up while you're down there. Thanks as always for watching. I'll see you soon.